Greetings fellow Earthlings and welcome back to the Frunk. First of all, I'd like to say a big thank you to all of you that sent get well wishes to my daughter and I. It really made us both feel really awesome. Thank you very much indeed. And also, as an added bonus, a lot of you shared with me your experiences with violent criminals and gnarly surgeries, and that was fascinating. I learned a lot, so thank you everybody for sharing and making me feel part of the club, I suppose, now. And anyway, in the words of the great Dave Chappelle, no matter what happens to you, you've got to keep going, and so that's what we're going to do. A quick recap while we're all sitting here. I bought this car pre-broken late at night on Craigslist, probably something you're not supposed to do. No one really knew what was wrong with it, but with your help I was able to whip the engine out and disassemble it enough to find that the problem was $50 worth of plastic parts, these timing chain guides for the Variocam solenoid. That was it. It got so worn that they had disintegrated and put the timing out, and that was that. So then we disassembled the engine a bit more and found that the bones are good enough to justify a full rebuild. And so again, with your help, we've got it to the point now where those halves, the engine halves, were put together last week, and we finally squared away the famous IMS bearing as well last week. And so this week we have to do what all of you have told me is the most challenging part of rebuilding one of these Porsche engines, and that is installing the Bank 2 pistons. Let's get back in the race.
And we're off. Bearing carrier bolt Bank 2. There's just one of them, but it's this huge thing here. I cleaned it all up. It has a little seal on it. It needs a T50 Torx to put that guy in. Using my socket wrench. And then I hope, the torque on that guy is 22 Newton meters. So that's what we're going to torque it to. I've already installed the Daaaa piston rings. You can see more about that in episode 12. Now we have to remove the assembly bore screw plug for Bank 2. And that's to get access to these wrist pin holes. The big side there has to face towards that bore plug at the end. To take that off, we use this large Allen wrench socket, an H12. We don't need the bog rolls anymore.
Hit the notification bell, it's up there.
Yes, please.
Cylinder wall lubrication. We're going to be moving these pistons up and down a little bit without any oil in the engine, and so we're trying to reduce the friction there with regular 5W30 weight oil. Okay, now we have to install the Circlips on the small side of the piston. There's our new Circlips from the local Porsche dealer. They're about $6 or $7 each. You need 12 of them. I have sped up the Circlip loading process a tremendous amount in this video because it is painful and frustrating. If you really want to know more about how to do it, check out episode 33. There it is, loaded up. It's got that one bit that sticks out, and that's important. And as you can see there, I got it in pretty much, but a little piece of it didn't go in. I had to push it in with the screwdriver, but that one's done. Right, that one, whack, and it went in. Got lucky on that one. I did come across a little bit of adhesive residue left behind from the vapor blasting in episode 23. And then installing that final Circlip, same thing, it pretty much went in, but a little piece of it stuck out that I had to put in with the screwdriver.
I would like if you would hit the like button.
The alignment tool. Pretty sure that's what it's called. Here it is. So that is supposed to go through there and line up the conrod and the piston so we can get the wrist pin in. I don't know what those other two pieces of white plastic on the alignment tool are for. Hopefully nothing too important. So here I'm rotating the engine to try to get the conrod for piston 6, the one closest to the car, low down. It seems like it has to be way down in the cylinder to be in position to line up with the hole that I'm putting the alignment tool down. So here I'm just kind of playing and seeing what everything does. I ended up just going too far really, because here I'm thinking, oh hey, couldn't I use that gooseneck to hold up the conrod and like put the wrist pin in just like that? Of course, we're going to need some assembly lube on our wrist pin bushings.
Graphogen. Tell them Wonder Woman sent you.
All right. So here we go, using our finger here just to get some of that lube onto those newly honed wrist pin bushings. And then on the pistons themselves and the rings, just giving them a good coating of 5W30 weight synthetic engine oil. Mobil one, I believe. Also lubing up that tapered piston ring compressor.
I mean it. Hit that subscribe button.
All right, probably doing this too soon without thinking. You know how it goes sometimes, but I just want to see if this is possible. I'm putting piston 6 in and we'll see what happens. Maybe you can get them out. I know the worst thing that happens is I'd have to split the engine again, and so I'm just going to battle on and try to see what the deal is. Through that bore hole that we'll look at later on, you can get a pretty good view in there. You can see that piston coming into line with the conrod. And it seems like it might work. Just resting the conrod on the gooseneck so it stays up in position. Then loading up a wrist pin. And shockingly, it goes in, but not all the way. Oh dear. I wasn't really intending on going this far with it, but it seemed like it might work, so I kept going. And thankfully, I was able to grab that wrist pin and take it out.
All right, we need to stop there. Any of you who know what you're doing must have had a really hard time watching that. We need to take a break so you can breathe. What we're trying to do then is make sure that these conrods, the one that we're working on, stays up. And so while I was playing there, just to sort of see what was up, what my approach is just fundamentally not going to work. For two reasons that I know of, though I'm sure you guys will weigh in on all the things I'm doing wrong here. I don't think I've screwed it up yet. I think we can still work with, oh my gosh, that graphogen is like a plague. I think we can still work with this piston being in there. But so the main, most important thing is, I think that having it like this will never work, because even if I have my gooseneck, or I've come up with all different contraptions you could use that would hold that conrod in position, and then you could slip it out because there's this little bit of space at the bottom of the cylinders that you can go between the cylinders. But let's say I do that. I do it here and I get that in, and by some miracle, success. So then I can go in here and then boom, I can get cylinder 5 and 6 would be done then. But what am I going to do for cylinder 4? This is a dead end. And so yeah, there is actually a little bit of access. There's some light you can see through the oil filler tube, but it's just not going to work. That's not good. So what I think we need to do is get gravity on our side and rotate it upside down. But if we do that on this table, of course, that's going to deny us access into these holes to sort of fix our screw ups or put the camera in to be able to see the circlips and such like that, which means we need to put it back onto the engine stand. And to do that, really, we should probably put the bank 1 timing guides back in. But I found another problem, and that is that this tool, which whatever these things are for, who knows, this tool is supposed to help us get the piston and the conrod aligned. And so this taper allows you for being off a little bit, and then you can slip all of this through, and it's supposed to go through the piston and through the conrod and then out the other side, right? And then it would line everything up. But this just, it won't go in. Won't go in the piston, and it doesn't really go into a conrod either. And so I measured that, and here we are with our, this is our not very accurate, but I think for this job, accurate enough caliper here. Let me do it so the camera can see it. And so if we do a caliper on this, you'll see that that is 22 millimeters. And then if we take one of our wrist pins, and we'll see that the wrist pin 21.9 and 21.8 even, so it's smaller.
Yes, folks, we definitely need to form a rudimentary lathe. Here's what I came up with. That's a belt sander, upside down. And that is a pipe you would use for your sprinkler system. Then I put a screw on the end of the alignment tool. The dealio is, I was going to try to put that into the chuck of this drill. You sort of see what I'm doing here. Spin that thing while the belt sander is going. That didn't really work. The screw kept slipping out of the drill's chuck no matter how much I tightened it. So instead I put a screwdriver bit onto my electric impact wrench, and that worked well. Now that we got the thing spinning, it created a new problem. My red gloved hand kept slipping down the alignment tool because I had nothing to push against. And so not very even, kind of working, but then I put a 11mm 12-point socket on the other end for my rudimentary lathe, and it was actually pretty good. So I just wore off all of the black marker that I put on there. That was the point of that. And then measuring it up to see if I'd taken enough off. And so yeah, 21.6, 21.7, that's good. And the reason for that is because, especially after honing the wrist pin bushings, it's very tight in there. So if anything is bigger than those wrist pins, there's no way it's going to go through. And so it works really well now. It goes into the conrod, goes into the pistons, still pretty snug, but works well. This is my plan B. I got this dowel at the local hardware store. It's 7/8 of an inch, which is 22-ish millimeters. You know, it's wood. But if you didn't have an alignment tool, you could probably make one out of one of those commonly available dowels. All right, moving on. The chain rails for bank 1. This chain goes from the IMS to the cams on this side. That's one of the holes for this bolt, and it has an O-ring that thankfully came in the gasket kit we got in episode 24. Giving that a clean up in the usual way. Kim wiped some brake cleaner. When it was all dry, I got the new O-ring, stuck that on there. I'm installing the bank 1 chain rails now because the engine stand blocks access to these two bolts. Then here's an H6 Allen to get that guy in. This is the lower of the chain rails. Pretty easy really, it has a hole in it. You line that hole up with the hole on the engine case. And then this one, I hope we are torquing to 10 Newton meters. Don't tell anyone, but I think I might have gone to 10.1. Here we go, done. And then the top one was a little bit of a mystery. There's not much space to get it in there. For the rail to line up with the bolt hole, it needs to be at quite a steep angle. That was the answer to that mystery. There we go, bolt that guy up with another H6 Allen wrench and then tightening that to 10 Newton meters. Then we're able to put the camshaft primary chain sprocket back in, and then just using a zip tie there to hold it in position and make it look cool.
We have a new feature. Take a look on your screen down there somewhere. there is a new button, a join button. Now that's for those of you that have been asking to get more actively involved in getting this car back on the road. And so there are membership opportunities there that offer exclusive perks, including a shout out from one of those nice ladies that seems to find their way into the tiny garage from time to time. Anyway, back at it.
Hey, Toronto J.
Engine stand bolting. Time to put it back on the engine stand. If you want to know much more about this, check out episode 12 with the monkey. Basically, you just bolt it on, really. A bit of kerfuffle other than that. These are the bolts from the transmission. And using the white Sharpie that subscriber David Gray sent me. Thank you, David. These are 16mm bolts that go into the bell housing area. I also tightened the engine stand mounting arms with a couple of box wrenches. And there we go. And that was the piece of tubing, just that one piece that I was using to move the engine around. It made it much easier. Okay, time to put the wrist pin into piston 6. I'm rotating the engine upside down. But as you'll notice, it doesn't go vertical. We need it at least vertical. So I decided to get one of these come-along straps just to give us that extra angle. There's a pin in the handle of the engine stand, and it gives you a few angles, but not what we need exactly for this. So I'm attaching it to the handle of the engine stand, and that did it. So let's have a look in here. It's a little blurry. It's difficult to get my phone to focus. If you look in there, you can see that's the conrod that I'm going to grab with the gooseneck of the camera. You see how it wants to sag to the left. So we need to go past vertical, really. Here I'm doing it again, but just sticking the camera through cylinder 5. So then I just tighten it up a little bit more. And now you can see how it kind of wants to sit in the middle, and that's what we want. I've changed the angle now. You guys are on the floor looking up at bank 2, and I'm testing that newly honed alignment tool, and it fits snug and lovely. Right now I'm looking through the bore hole at the other end of the engine to see when piston 6 comes into alignment with the conrod, and I'm really just using the borescope camera as a light to help me see more clearly. And then checking with the alignment tool, seems good. Notice how the other conrods kind of stay out of the way when the engine's hung upside down. It's much easier. Okay, hold on to your pants. Wrist pin installation. Seems to be going okay, but it gets stuck. Doesn't want to go in anymore. Oh no. So trying with my hand, see if I can pull it out like last time, but no. It's like a greasy little piglet. Doesn't want to come out. So I rotate the engine up so it's right way up and just easier to look in and get at. There's no way that's coming out with my hands. And so I have this vice grip with a long arm on it. Don't worry, I am going to put that glove on there. And that kind of sort of grabbed it, but not really. Tried my magnet. I do have another level of magnet. I've got a rare earth magnet that I didn't try, and you'll see why. I tried both together. Another try with my glove vice grip thing. So then I was going to clean some of the oil off it so I can get a grip on it and pull on it. But then I tried pushing on it, and I ended up pushing it in. I'm like, oh my gosh, is that far enough? Because I've never done this before, of course. Trying with the camera there to get a look-see. What do you think? Seems like that's what you're supposed to have. I went in with the tool again just to give it another whack. And I know now that that's far enough. If you can get that metal part of that tool with just a little bit sticking out, that's the right amount that it's supposed to go into the other cylinder. Oh no, it's unavoidably time for the wrist pin circlip. Here we go. I'm marking up where that other part of the circlip is, the little tang that sticks out. It has to be in a particular area, And that's looking through from the end of that bore plug hole, looking through all the cylinders. So it is pretty easy to see. And I marked that up on the tool as well, just so I can be hyper aware of what's going on. Now here there's no Circlip loaded. I'm just trying it out and seeing if that is something I feel confident about. What I decided to do is get a piston up there and compare how they look. And it seems like, yeah, my wrist pin is in all the way. There I'm just checking how far in does that tool go, so I get an idea of when it's seated. And then here we go, this is it. I've got a Circlip loaded, got all my lines drawn, nothing to it but to do it. Yes, I'm freaking out. This is it. Loading up my sledgehammer section of this tool. I ended up going with the finger technique. Here we go. I whacked the living jeepers out of it, I promise you. It's like the hardest I've ever used that tool. The second whack felt pretty solid. I was feeling pretty good about it. So taking a look, I was ready to be sad. But what do you guys think? I think that is way down in its little socket area. And I think that that means we're good.
With any luck, our wrist pin and Circlip for piston 6 are located in an appropriate manner. Now that should at least be proof of concept, and I feel more confident that pistons 4 and 5 are within our grasp. But unfortunately, that is all we have time for this week. Thank you very much for watching. Till next time.